the best way to put it for me is if we can turn our culture into, this is not like playing basketball is not what you do, it's who we are. I think we have a foot ahead in the race of kind of where we want to be. And then everything kind of translates. We're the same group, same work ethic in the weight room. Our locker room stays clean and we take care of that the same way. When we watch film, when we're in the classroom, you want things to be able to carry over one thing from the next, and you notice no difference. You're gonna have mistakes and we don't expect perfection. We anticipate mistakes, but we anticipate a quick result and not making them again.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we're joined by the head boys basketball coach at Hobbs High School in New Mexico, Ronald Ross. Coach Ross had an incredibly successful career playing for Coach Bobby Knight at Texas Tech from 2001 to 2005. He then played overseas for 13 years in Italy, France, and Greece. He joined the Texas Tech staff for 2 years as an assistant coach before returning to his alma mater, Hobbs High School. As a player, Coach Ross led the Eagles to 3 consecutive state championships from 1999 to 2001. In his first season as the head coach, the Eagles finished with a 26-5 record, and Coach Ross was named District 4 5A Coach of the Year. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Oh, yeah, there he is.
What's going on, Coach? How are you?
It's just been, 20 years? No big deal.
I know, right? Man, gosh, it flies by. It flies
It
by.
does. It does. Well, I just first wanted to tell you, man, how proud I am of you after college playing for 13 more years. You did it, man. You lived the dream. I could only do it for 1 year after, and then I was done. So you did great.
And I appreciate it. Health, man. You know how it goes, man. One injury, and then just it builds up. And I was lucky to stay healthy, but I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, how did you do that over time? I mean, was it like a LeBron type thing where you're really focused on your body and keep staying healthy, or just a little, maybe a little bit of luck too?
Yeah, a little bit of both. You gotta definitely take care of your body. But yeah, you gotta have a little luck too, because things just kind of happen. But man, honestly, I had my senior year, when I had finished my senior year, I had a big injury. I signed in Italy, but I ended up having an injury that put me out for 8 months. So I had a lot of time to start rehabbing, taking care of my body, and then from then I kind of just really locked in and started just making sure I took care of everything moving forward, year in and year out.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
Well, man, first, I want to tell you how honored I am to have this time with you and thankful that you're able to give it up. You were probably one of my favorite players over the years to not only get to compete against, but be able to watch too, because you just kept getting better and better and better. And your senior year was incredible. And now to hear that you're coaching and to get to connect with you again, this is just an honor for me.
Oh man, thank you. I really appreciate it. And likewise, you hit it on the head with 20 years ago, all the battles we had. So no, man, it's definitely a blessing, and I'm definitely glad to be here.
We already talked a little bit about your playing career. And so I would imagine the daily habits that you had then, you've continued some, and now as a coach, I mean, people may think that like once you're done playing, life gets, a little bit more or less crazy. But when you coach, it kind of stays pretty nuts. And so with the schedule and everything, what are some of those daily habits that set you up for success?
I think it kind of comes with the game of basketball, and kind of a side note, it's constantly evolving. With this game, you got to constantly stay on it and stay open to learning new stuff. Even though you have your certain habits and you're very consistent with those, you got to constantly have an open mind and be exploring new ways to do different things that might work or might not. Not necessarily might not work, but you just got to stay on top of it as far as the knowledge and just knowing what you need to do. And then habits that I do, honestly, try to be as consistent as possible. Just starting off with the morning. There's 4 things I do that just kind of get me in a mental space. Either I'm praying, reading my Bible, listening to some music, probably watching a motivational video or reading a book. I read in the morning as well. Then more, a few of the things that I do every single morning. And then, or I watch film. Then there's some things I do every single morning that kind of wake me up, wake my mind up. and get me started for the day. And then coming into it, it's just it sets my mentality to just lead, because I know that being a coach, being a leader of a team is I got to lead with the right attitude. It starts there, bringing the right energy, regardless of what you're guiding your kids through as a coach or whatever the case is. You got to set the day off with the right energy. So I make sure that I'm prepared, because every day, you know how it is. Every day is not your day as a coach. So you gotta make sure that you're aware of kind of where your mental state is, and be ready to pass it forward whenever you start the day. So those are some things that kind of start my day off. And then, as far as we, practice or school, whatever I'm doing, just be consistent, be very consistent, build on it, and make sure that I know that whether or not I'm improving in an area or I'm not just going or passing through the day, going through the motions. There's kind of a metric to kind of knowing where you're at and where you stand, and was it good, was it bad, can you repeat, understanding the circles you're around, the individuals, and just kind of taking notes. I'm a big note taker, so just try to stay as aware as possible of kind of my surroundings, and just build on it. You know what I mean? Lay one brick at a time. It's not necessarily to build habits to try to build Rome in a day, but man, if you could just lay one solid brick down, it goes a long way. And then you just focus and you lay the next one.
Yeah. It's funny listening to that. It just kind of makes sense to me, like how you talk about consistency, the why you were the player that you were. Because if you look back, I did a little bit of research to remind myself before our talk, but averaged about 2 points your freshman year, which that's nothing to scoff at. Like Big 12 as a freshman, that's hard. And then you 4 points as a sophomore, and then pushed up to 10, and then pushed up to 17 as a senior. It's almost like what you're just talking about with your daily habits. It seems like that's what you were as a player, pretty consistent and trying to lay those bricks every day. But it took you some time to become the player that you ended up becoming.
Yes. No, absolutely. And yeah, just kind of to touch on that journey. Yeah, you're exactly right. I always tell people, sometimes it comes to you, say you're a freshman, you get things clicking in 4 months, and you're just that guy rolling in conference. Sometimes it takes you 2 years. In my case, it was kind of, year by year as it built up. And it was more so, I think with the consistency, it was just having the right attitude. And, I was able to, the buy-in with Coach Knight and how he was, just focused on defense. I was able to see the results, because we statted every practice. And, there was a part where it was like, now, all right, I've earned the right to play here. Then you move forward, get a little bit more, earn the right to play here. Then you get a little bit more versus speculation and being emotional, saying, hey, you're able to build strong habits and then see the rewards of them. So it's more encouraging to kind of keep you rolling in the right direction, just to grow.
Yeah. You talked about those things that you do every day, and I think that's important for every coach. It doesn't have to be the same 4 or 5 things that you do. Mine are similar, but there needs to be a consistency or flow, because you talked about showing up with energy every day. And another way to look at it is as coach, especially as a head coach, we can't show up empty. Like we've got to be full, because we're going to be pouring into so many people, administration, into parents, into our players, into things in the future. And all of a sudden we can just empty ourselves out. And then how are we getting filled up? And I don't know how many coaches out there are running on fumes every day, because they're giving so much of themselves, but they're not taking that time, whether it's in the morning, whether it's at the night, to fill back up.
No, for sure. No, you're right. I mean, gaslighting in the coaching industry is definitely real. You'll start running on E, and you got to recharge. And sometimes you'll start to reach. I'm guilty of it, reaching, just trying to figure out to refill myself to get to where I know I need to be. But over time you learn a lot. And then a big part of what kind of helped me was just from year to year was just delegating. You got to know how to delegate to your assistant coaches or to other people, and hand things off. And because as a coach, you're gonna apply the same energy you do into everything. So if it's just, hey, ordering jerseys, or hey, let's make sure this is organized for whatever, or hey, we're at this meeting and we're on top of the grades for the kids, you have to delegate to give yourself more of a balance, and then you're able to stay fueled for the things. Not that everything doesn't matter, but for the things that your main key points. big rock.
Man, that's a good point. I was just talking to our girls coach because this is his first year at Faith. And so we're going through some of the things that, maybe some of those potholes that could be in his way if he doesn't see them, just something like maybe places where I've learned over time. And you realize that, and this is maybe what parents don't see or players don't even get, is the small part of what we actually do is the game,
Yes.
is between those lines. The bigger part is all the other stuff, the organization, the preparation, with assistants, with players, with schedules, with gear. I mean, golly, it'd be kind of nice if it was just basketball, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely, you definitely got to balance the scale for sure. And it's interesting you said. I was talking to some parents last week, not last week, last end of last year, just kind of putting things in perspective. It made me think like how many hours you put into just the whole entire process, whether it's administration, school, practice, traveling, whatever the case is, because we spend a lot of time with their kids and things dealing with our program. Our season it was a little shorter in New Mexico, but it was a total of 14.9 hours. So, you got 32-minute games. The totality of it was around 15 hours for the entire season. And you're going to get judged 32 minutes at a time. Your results matter 32 minutes at a time. And at the end of the day, it's not even a days of work that you put in to where it means so much. So just understanding the value of those hours that you do put in, because I think it was equivalent to 4,000 or 5,000 hours put in throughout the year. I think that's right. I'll have to double check. Don't hold me to that. But in comparison, 15 to, a couple thousand is just a big difference. So you definitely got to understand it's more bigger picture, but the details are important.
No doubt. And I love that idea of the 15 hours to the 5,000 because I think it's close. And what we got to do a good job of is making sure that we're organized and we communicate well with the parents so that the only thing that we could upset them on is those 32 minutes.
Yeah.
Because we can't always control that. But what we can't have is they're watching little Timmy, their son, not play. And then all of a sudden, you know what? And he doesn't communicate quickly. And he doesn't respond to my emails. And this was late. And that, like, to me, that's where the trouble happens. You're going to get the parents that aren't happy with the calls that you make, the style of play, the amount of playing time. I get that. You can't let it stack on to other things that's happening as well.
No, I agree. Y'all completely agree, because then it internalizes and implodes from like, what in the world's going on? So couldn't agree with you more.
And that's when you get calls from your AD. Hey, you need to come in. We need to talk. Hopefully it's not on the basketball part, but man, I want to get into culture a little bit and how you feel like it drives the performance of your team. And also I would like to, and if you're cool, they go back a little bit to the culture that Coach Knight created. And because I haven't been able to talk to a lot of guys that played for him. I played against him. I knew Andre Emmett really well. And so we had some conversations, but you're probably one of the few that I've been able to talk to. But let's first start with culture of your program and how it drives the performance of your team.
Yeah, obviously the culture, like any other coach, you wanna have your standards in place, but it's really important for our players to have their hands on the wheel, but it's the right way. Whether we're guiding them, telling them which direction to go, they're steering the boat. You know what I mean? They're steering the thing. And I think the biggest thing, the best way to put it for me is if we can turn our culture into, this is not like playing basketball is not what you do, it's who we are. I think we have a foot ahead in the race of kind of where we want to be, and then everything kind of translate. We're the same group, same work ethic in the weight room. Our locker room stays clean, and we take care of that the same way. When we watch film, when we're in the classroom, you want things to be able to carry over one thing from the next, and you notice no difference. You're gonna have mistakes, and we don't expect perfection. We anticipate mistakes, but we anticipate a quick result and not making them again. But just building a culture to where hey, this is who we are, this is what we do, and it's just a winning, an all around winning mentality. But it's all the little things that added up that kind of get you there, and then it's just kind of a place of your own. And that's one of the biggest parts for me. And then as far as another thing with the culture is just wanting to be here. Like, man, I love hanging out at the gym because it's not always so much about, hey, we put in the work, we did this, we kept the locker room clean, but just simply enjoying being present around the individuals that you work with every day. Whether we're doing a team event, we're bowling, we're going to the movies, we're going to eat, hey, we're just watching a football game or watching a basketball game in the locker room, lounging, hanging out. So it's this is a totality of all those different things that kind of that really elevate your culture and kind of put your stake in the ground as far as like what you want it to be.
Yeah, a couple great things there. One is that you said players steer the culture. I think we hear about we want to have a player-led team. We hear that all the time. But what are some things that you do to actually allow them to steer the direction or lead the culture?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I'll do is versus getting the whole group as a collective, like collecting the whole group and telling them something in front of, let's say, all 12 guys. I'll grab 2 or 3 of them and I'll start there. And then those 2 or 3, if I don't assign them to 2 or 3 people or whatever the case is, or 3 or 4, whatever it is that gives me the numbers need, they kind of have small groups. We get the small groups, and then collectively, you kind of talk with your small groups, break them in, give them small, achievable goals. Whether it's hey, make sure y'all get together and shoot X amount of shots, free throws, whatever that small goal is that's achievable, and then you carry it over to being able to run a practice. It'd be nice. It's nice sometimes, like, I've had a meeting before, and it's not always, but I've had it happen, where, hey, I was running behind on something. I was like, hey, I'll be there in a minute. Just give a second. They've already started stretching, started the drill, started the warm up. And they just kind of took, they had the autonomy. They knew they had the autonomy and the confidence, and they got after it. When I went out of there, we didn't miss a beat. We just carried on and went forward. So it takes time for sure. It doesn't just happen. But that's definitely a small indication of like, hey, y'all take control. Your hands in the
Yeah.
world.
That's a great place to be when they're doing those things on their own, no doubt.
Mhm.
You said something twice that I wrote down I thought is really important. When you set up these leadership groups, Terry Butterfield was the former head coach at UTD, University of Dallas. He was there for 20 plus years, just retired recently, but he had a great activity that he did every year where he would bring in 3 or 4 guys and they would be the leaders of these leadership groups. And those leaders were really his connection to the pulse of the team. He was able to give them messages to go out. Sounds a lot like kind of what you're doing. But what you said is because these are high school kids, we want to set them up for success, which means those goals have to be achievable.
Mhm.
How often do we want our players to do things, but we're asking them to almost like care at an inappropriate level or be more mature than they are? We're setting them up for failure almost. So whatever we ask them to do, a shooting challenge, to lead in some way, start really small. And one example is when Coach Drew took over my senior year. So Coach Bliss left, whole program fell apart. I was left with 5 other scholarship guys. You guys killed us both games that year. So I appreciate that. But Coach Drew came in, and his first thing was he met with me, some of the older players, and he said, "I want you to meet with every player that we have for lunch. Meet them for lunch, and that's it. Just have food with them." Like he didn't give them like me any tips or anything, but it was something really small, and it was something that I could achieve. And I think it's a really great example of how to give player led, make it player led is set them up for success and like you said, make it achievable.
No, absolutely. And the great thing about it, ultimately, like you said, all those little things build it up to carry over to the court. Because as a coach, don't get me wrong, we love to manage the game and make sure things are going the way they're supposed to. But if you got to do it, if they can get out there and do it without you telling them, it's nice as a coach to sit back and watch kids just play and reap the rewards from the great habits they build together. So yeah, a lot of upside from them being able to be player led for sure.
Another thing you said I thought was right on the money was make it a place where they want to be, like where they want to hang out, where they feel comfortable. I had a coach the other day talk about you want you want your offense, you want the scheme, you want everything to allow them to be comfortable and to have familiarity. Like this feels familiar. I've done this before. I think when they're comfortable and they feel that way, then they can perform at a higher level. And so I wonder how many coaches want to have the kids around, want them to stay, and they don't. And if they don't, you've got to ask, maybe they don't, like you said early on too, maybe they don't love it. Maybe they just
Yeah.
don't really care that much. Possible, right?
Mhm.
Or is there something that we're not creating in the environment that makes them want to stay after practice and do more?
No, for sure. No, yeah, it's definitely key. Just because they're going to spend a lot of time here, and the last thing you want them to do is, you, as a coach, you want them to live in the gym, but the reality of it is they probably won't. But if they can meet half of probably what your expectation is as far as staying there, because honestly, which coach wouldn't want a kid that's not leaving when you're leaving or after? But if they can get half of that, I think it's a huge success. But you're right; it just goes back to that mentality, and if they enjoy being there, it's kind of it's contagious. The next guy wants to stay there. Well, he's hanging out there. I want to stay in the gym. Then the next guy, and it just kind of carries over, and it just builds on the positivity of the culture of kind of what we've been talking about.
Yeah. So you're able to play for Coach Knight, and then you went 13 years or so professional all over the world. And then you got back into coaching with Coach Beard at
Yeah.
Tech, and you're there for a little while, and then went back to your high school, which is super cool. I want to get into that later too. So I think we are a product of the coaches that we've had, and there
Mhm.
are some things that we take from them. But then at some point, I don't know what year it is or when it happens. It's probably different for everybody. But at some point, you to really realize who you are. What are some of those things? Let's just start with Coach Knight
Mhm.
that you feel like, even though it was so long ago and you had that big gap, these are characteristics or these are things that I took from him, his practice, his style, whatever, and I am using that with my team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, good question. Like it's interesting enough. It's not as big as a gap as you probably would think. The things that I've learned from Coach Knight just over the years, they impact my everyday life. Like I don't think there's a day in my life when I left Texas Tech that I didn't use something that I got from Coach Knight, not just from a basketball level, but just as an individual. You know what I mean? As an individual, a man, a father, a leader, whatever the case is. There were so many life lessons in that 4 years that I had with him. A lot of learning that overcome adversity, learning to enjoy success, and then going to the next thing. So there's a lot of positivity that I took from Coach Knight, and honestly, he changed my life. I wouldn't have was not going into Tech thinking I was going to leave with Coach Knight, feeling like a father figure. So, but he was incredible. He was he's probably not a man I have more respect for than him. Obviously I have my father, my family, and stuff, but he's just on the top of the list, and he's definitely one of one. So I just think of Coach Knight in the highest regard because at the end of the day, and this is a little side note, when I went to Texas Tech as a walk-on, he was a coach that said yes. I had a lot of coaches not interested and just turning back. Maybe 2 years of JUCO, go here, maybe red shirt. But he was the one that said, yes, I want you here, and gave me a fair shot. So, when it comes to, I was going to listen to that man and run through a wall for him. And he did things the right way. He was very demanding, very kind of big time disciplinarian. We had militant ways to where we didn't have facial hair. Our shorts were measured and tailored chart. You sat in the front of the class. You didn't wear hats. There was just the whole line of things that we just had to do different. But you either you got on board, or hey, you got left behind, because there was a zero tolerance policy with them. So it was man, it was really incredible, but the great thing about it is when you start realizing, who you're playing for and what you're there for, that stuff's all little. You're going to play top conference in the country for one of the best coaches, arguably one of the best college basketball coaches to ever do it, and you're there to win. So you're not going there if you're not going to a place like that to play for somebody on the level of, like, say, Coach Knight, and you're not going there to win with your own goals. I think that's the most important thing is you got to play. You being able to play with him, and having my own goals. I think is what really fueled me to kind of keep going because he had his goals. Of course, he's won 3 national championships, gold medals with Michael Jordan. Just the whole nine. But I had to have my own goals, whether it was just like, hey, I'm going to crack that starting lineup. Hey, I'm a great player. I'm going to get there. I'm going to eventually get there. But that was nice. So having my own goals combined with the goals that he had set for me, it was and obviously my goals were a little bit ahead of his. So he humbled me up. Hey, you're going to play defense. Like coming from New Mexico, I was leading scorer in the state. I get there to Texas Tech. He's like, hey, you're going to play defense. And I'm, yes, sir. And, playing defense, I started the first 4, 5, 6 games as a freshman, as a walk-on. And then things kind of changed after that. But just the buy-in, and we were winning. We think that first year we went, that year before he got hired, they went 9-23. His first year there, when we all got there, we went 23-9. So it was a big turnaround. It was not a lot of high, players that everybody knows or anything special, but it was just valuing the details, buying into the coach, putting in the work every day. And that's something that's really, we talked about it. You asked earlier with Coach Knight, his attention to detail was unbelievable. He was brilliant. The most littlest things made the biggest difference, and he would not overlook that. He would make sure that you got it right before he moved on to the next thing. And that's something I learned from him, just from not just practice day to day, but also film study. Nobody studied film more than Coach Knight, breaking it down, and whether it was defensively, offensively, and then you're constantly taking notes. I remember it's the first days of practice. We have one day where we just have a notebook and we're going over offense, and that's all we're talking about. We're writing notes on everything he expects. Where's the help sideline? One step up. Whether you're one foot over, if it's below the free throw line, or 1 foot above. If it's above, whatever the case is. And there was a lot of detail. And then the next day was defense, and you just completely broke it down. And everything was just, it was honestly like you were getting your master's in basketball. You're just studying, and you're being tested on it. Then he's going to test you on, he's going to ask questions. And he made sure that you knew you had to have a certain level. You didn't have to be the smartest guy. You could make mistakes. You couldn't make the same mistake over and over again. But, basketball is a game of errors. And, something he always says, like, victory favors the team with the fewest mistakes. So, you just took a lot of pride in it. And you did learn a lot. It was the little things where we were able to beat some teams we probably shouldn't have beat. You know what I'm saying? Just considering the talent and what we did, how we scored, how we played. But it was just the grit, the details, the buying in, the coaching. And it made a lot of sense once you kind of got it. Once I finally got a taste of that and see the kind of players and the things that he had in the past in Indiana, why he was able to have the success he did there. So, man, it was definitely an incredible learning curve to get from him. Things I carry on from him is kind of like, he gave me a book. Every time we had a trip, we'd hop on the plane, and he'd say, Ron, come sit right here. And he'd hand me a book. Larry Bird, Michael Jordan. It wasn't just handing me a book. He's going to ask me questions about it. Laws of leadership. It's just, he would hand me a book, and I'd have to read that book. And he's like, where you at on that book? And he's like, tell me about it. And he just, build me up. So he did a lot of little things that really, just sparked your interest. It wasn't just basketball. And that's something I do with some of our players. I'll give them books and give them information and kind of, hey, watch this video, watch this clip. Now it's a little easier. You can send a kid a link and question them about it, So I do some of those things. But man, it just broadened my perspective, knowing how Jordan did what he did, or how Pat Riley coached the way he did, or how Larry Bird's work ethic was what it was. And obviously these are more older references, but that's what he gave me. So it was incredible. It was incredible. And it helped carry over to the court, and just made, gave me a better understanding of kind of how he saw things and what he expected from me as not just a player, but as a leader on his team.
I can't get enough of those stories. You could have kept going if you got any more. I mean, it's just so interesting because of Coach Bliss used to tell me some of because he was Coach Knight's first assistant coach back before Indiana. And so Coach Bliss knew him really well, looked up to him, obviously. And so there's times when Coach Bliss and I were together, he would tell me some things about Coach Knight, and some positive, some not, but you hear especially back in the, the 90s and 2000s, you heard more of the negative side from players that maybe had left or things that you saw or interviews that he had. And I think sometimes that overshadowed all of the amazing things. I would run down the sideline and I'd hear him yell and like, it just, you just look over at him. He's this big guy and he's intimidating but I think one of the biggest successes and the reason I always believed that he was incredible as a coach was Andre Emmett, what he was able to do with him. And
Mhm.
I can't think of more like different people than those two, coming together and making it
Oh, you're
work.
right.
Andre from Dallas Carter High School, we played together a little bit and on some select teams, and he didn't have the best first year with, I think, Coach Dickey.
That's right.
And then Coach Knight came in, and you just saw Andre start to mold into his motion and become this well-known player, but like with Coach Knight. And it was always amazing to me knowing Andre before that it worked. But to me, that just shows the brilliance of Coach Knight. Is it forget where you're from and forget your background, man. If you love the game and you're tough, and he took Andre's skill set, which was 15 feet and in, and really capitalized on that. But that was just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. And kind of to add on to what you said about Andre, I mean, you're exactly right. Andre, I don't think he's hands down probably one of the best players he's ever had in that motion offense. I thought I was pretty good, but there's no argument that Andre was one of one when it came to, playing in that offense to do the things that he did. And like I said, like you would think it was nothing really overly special about like what the method was to get Andre to score, but it was just the little things that coach set up for him, whether it's a triangle or whatever the case is. And then more importantly, Andre's buy-in.
Yeah.
He worked
Yeah.
hard. Andre worked really hard. He stayed in the gym hours and worked. He was committed to being the best. He had a vision for himself. He took some good butt chewings like everybody else, and he had his downs, but he got up every time and he competed. He didn't ever like losing in practice, like all of us, myself included. Like it was just not acceptable. And being able to be with like-minded people like that, it made being successful a little bit easier. But yeah, Andre he was special, man. From day one, and then the combination of Coach Knight's brilliance and that motion offense, and players just that's one of the reasons I think my first few years I needed to develop as a player first of all. But hey, I'm passing to Andre, so I had no problem buying it. Hey, it passed. Hey, we having a lot of success passing to this guy. I'm gonna keep doing that. So,
And they've got that little skinny guy guarding him from Baylor in there. Coach Bliss used to say, "Hey, you've got Emmett," and I look at him like almost like with a disbelief, like, "Are you sure?" Like
uh,
I'm 6'3", but I'm not nearly as big as him and strong. But
yeah,
yeah, it's such a great fit. I have one more question, and I just thought of this, and then I want to get more into your program, and
yeah, no
because
worries.
you've done something that is maybe like it'd be cool one day if it happened to me, but with where you coach now. But one more question about Coach Knight, with the way that the game is played today, utilizing the 3-point line as a weapon, letting it fly. How do you think? Would he have been able to, let's just say he was a little bit younger and his career would have gone farther into this, would he have been able to make those changes? And the reason I ask that is when we played you, you guys barely shot threes,
Uh-huh.
and we would pack inside the 3-point line like pretty extreme. And maybe that changed after Andre graduated, maybe your senior year, because that was your senior year, the year after us, right?
Yeah, that was all right.
Yeah.
Oklahoma was my
Yeah,
senior
because me and Andre are the same. What are your
year.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think in time, just because he was kind of towards the end where he coached a few more years after I had left. I think he could have made the adjustment for sure. He would have studied a lot and probably would have recruited different. There's a lot of different things that kind of go into how the style of play that you have. And I think with us, we had a few just guys that could flat out shoot or that could shoot. But today's game, the level of preparation for threes in comparison to then and now. Hey, I shoot this many more threes versus this many, saying 2000 versus how many average threes a kid practices or shoots in 2020. It's just 2020 is probably not a good year because it's COVID, but you know what I mean. It's just they're not trained. They weren't training. People were shooting threes, but not like they are today. But I
If
think
you
his
shot 4 or
mind,
5 in a game, that felt like a lot back
yes.
then.
Oh, it did. It did. It did. Nowadays, 11, 12, no problem. And this
First
sounds
5
funny,
minutes.
but yeah, first 5 minutes. Hey, we're 2 for 9 in the first 3 minutes of the game with threes. It's like, and there's nothing wrong with that picture in today's game.
No,
It's just
that's
like, hey,
right.
they're not making nothing. But I think he could have made the adjustment, but he was more again, just very his logic when it came to the game, the highest percentage shot. That's what he wanted from us. It was, setting it good screens, getting close to the basket as possible. Those were the shots that he wanted, and like I said, with our practices, like probably many other schools did, we had a shot chart, the amount of threes we took, the amount of twos that we took, just the things that we worked on, what we trained on, and we literally did exactly what we worked on. It was never nothing outside of the box. Every now and then, a guy would get hot, and you start trying a few things, and he'd let you go because you're kind of rolling. But yeah, man, it was kind of straight to the point. That's one thing about him. It was no gray area. It was just like, hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to get as many high percentage shots as possible. And then also, I remember our motion was kind of a thing where we scored so many points in the last 8 seconds of the shot clock. So, we had I think, was it 35 when we played? It was still 35.
Yep.
So you're going, 8, 7, and we're still moving, and then boom, all of a sudden there's a quick layup, or there's a quick putback, and
Hard to guard. The odds of somebody on the team not making a mistake in those first 25 seconds, were so low. And then you guys were so patient that you're just waiting for it to happen. We think there's a switch and there's not, or you don't get all the way around and you give up an angle. It was hard to guard.
yeah, it's tiresome for sure. I had to get adjusted. Like, oh my gosh, why am I so tired? But
You mentioned that there's no gray with him. What about you? Is there gray with you and how you coach your guys?
so right now with me, I'm pretty straightforward. I would say I'm very how would I say? I don't think I have a lot of gray area, honestly. You know what I mean? In my opinion, I try to set up the expectation early. So it's not like things are not a surprise. I let the expectations be known kind of up front. Like now I got a group of guys that kind of know, like, hey, this is expected. This is what's not, what's the word I'm looking for? Not
Tolerated.
acceptable. Yeah, not acceptable,
Yeah.
whatever the case is. And they kind of know that line. There's either you're on this side of it or you're on that side of it. So we had some I've had some growing pains, with a few players or whatever the case is, but we've got through them, and those players are back with a better understanding. And then on my part, even though I do have my, hey, this is how we're going to do things. I make sure I do my part, and I'm intentional about building that relationship with that kid so he understands who I am and the vision that I have and why I have it. Kind of like what Coach Knight did for me. I knew it wasn't just like the guy was a winner. He was a winner. He was 65 years old, watching film till 2 or 3 in the morning, prep, ready, on fire, with more energy than any of the other coaches that were on the court. And he was just a man on fire, but it was for winning. So it was, I try to make sure I do the same thing, but make sure the players understand who I am. So when I do ask them, or if something is expected of them, they know it's just not coming because, oh, this guy's coaches on one today, or, he's not in a good mood. It's more of an understanding. And then the beauty with that is if you can get your guys, your small group guys, in order, they can help tackle some of that for you. Like, hey man, come on. Hey, hey, you need to lock in, or whatever the case is, versus it's a dispute between me and another player. So
Yeah.
but that's a constant, that's something that it takes a lot of work and you just got to be consistent with. But it does happen, and the payoff of it is definitely nice. But I like to say I don't have any gray area. I don't think it really benefits you, but you do need to be understanding, especially at the high school level. You do need to be more I think at any level, honestly, but especially at the high school level where kids are learning. This is really kind of the foundation of their growth, because they won't learn the same things in junior high or even at home, for that matter, that they'll learn with a coach that's really trying to build a winning culture, not just winning on the court, but just a winning culture with a winning mentality and just doing things the right way.
And in high school, they're not ultimately in charge of their lives yet.
Yes,
So there may
yes.
be decisions that are happening at home that affect them at school. And so we have to be understanding for that. Because I think that's maybe sometimes where the black and white can get you in trouble if there is a player that has something going on outside that, man, you can't, it's not his fault, and it's not. So I think that, but I also thought of the Don Meyer quote that's they won't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And I
Mhm.
think you nailed that really well.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I would say if there is a gray area, it'd be that understanding piece and just kind of knowing where they're at. You
Yeah.
gotta meet the kids where they're at, not where you expect them to be. So we meet them where they're at. You can kind of it's a lot easier going from there versus, hey, you're just not to where I want you. So
Yeah.
it's our job as a coach to get a kid right. It's easy for a coach to say, "Oh, he doesn't have a left hand. Oh, he's always like this. Oh, why is his attitude?" Yeah, that's easy for us. But we get into coaching so we can try to help build that character, you build that left hand, manage that locker room or whatever the case is, and just be there for it, do the best we can at our part, and then of course they have a job to do too, and to bridge that gap.
You won 3 state championships in high school,
Yes, sir. Yes.
3 state championships, went to Tech, and I think behind you is your Tech Hall of Fame. Is that what that picture is?
Oh yeah, yeah. That is
That's pretty cool. So finish out of
yep.
Tech and you're in the Hall of Fame there, had this great career, start coaching, and then you get back to where it all started because you're at the same high school now, correct?
Yes, I am back at the same high school.
Man, tell me what that's like to be coaching at the place where you played high school ball and had so much success.
Yeah, it's man, it's honestly it's an incredible honor to be able to do it, man. And honestly, it's a privilege. I thought if I coach in high school, because I was really set on just coaching in college or coaching at the pro level. And then God willing, one thing led to the next and the opportunity and the door opened here. And all I wanted to do is, coach and be part of the game and continue just continue my career and my life with basketball. Kind of married to it. It's not going nowhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but man, it's a privilege, really, because it was my beginning, like you said, it was my beginning of everything. And the legendary Ralph Tasker, he was one of the most winningest coaches in high school history, and he's just built so much tradition and set a foundation here where the expectation is still, hey, we want to win every year. Now we all know it's not realistic to win a state title every year or win the whole thing every year, the demand is still that high, because it was just that strong throughout the years and well respected. So it's something I enjoy personally. I like the challenge of, hey, we want nothing but the best. Of course, that's what I want too, and we're going to work accordingly to kind of reach that bar and understanding that, hey, you do losing is part of the game, but hey, we put our best foot forward, but we fell forward versus standing still. So that's something that's really unique about this place. But being able to come back and coach, biggest thing for me, man, too, is just being able to give back. And because I was really blessed to do a lot of things, going to play 4 years at Texas Tech, doing what I did there, played 13 years pro, coach for 2 years with Chris Beard, and be the Big 12 champions and unfortunately losing a national championship. There's a lot of things to pass on, and will you pass on everything, and will every kid do what you did? Probably not, but you can build kids in a lot of different ways. And I'm really huge on, giving back to the community, not just mine, not necessarily Hobbs or whatever in New Mexico, but just in general. That's a big part of who I am. That really fills my cup, is just being able to give back and see the rewards of it. So being able to do that at home, at a school where I had a lot of success, it's going to be fun to kind of be on the saddle now and have some other guys with you to try to do it again and maybe teach them to pass it on, because, this is what this whole thing's about, is passing it forward, getting the best out of somebody, doing the absolute best that you can. And then when your job is done, your job is not done if you pass it forward. So that's when you can kind of get a little peace of mind and what you're doing and why you did what you did.
Yeah. On that note of your program now, what's one thing that you think makes it different?
Now or just in general, like
Yeah, your program in general. Yeah.
yeah, I think with our program, I think obviously with me coming in and doing what I did in the past with my basketball career, the expectation is high. Like, hey, you're here now, we're about to win. And like I said, I like it. I'm not backing down from it. I love every bit of it. But there's that realistic aspect where it's like, we got some work to do. And I'm the type of guy where I just want to put my head down, invest in our boys, build our culture, do all them little things that make a big difference. And, that's kind of where my mentality is. And then as far as what makes it unique, I kind of touched on it earlier. The expectation for winning here with this program is very high. It's Final Four every year. That's at minimum where I think all of our fans expect us to be, if not winning it all. So I'm up for the challenge. I'm excited. Ready to get there on a basketball standpoint, but I think more importantly, I have no doubt that we'll get there if I'm able to build these young men and able to change some of their lives in a right way, and only if it's a little bit. I don't got to be Superman. I don't have to be mom, dad, best teacher, best coach. I just want to be a small ounce of that positive drive and that positive light that pushes them forward in some way. So, yeah, the task is it's big, but at the same time, it's small by just controlling what you can control, having a plan, being prepared, and going day in and day out, trying to execute it as well as possible.
Man, that's a great perspective to have, to just be a small part of their improvement. I think so many times, especially if we have a kid or maybe a situation where there's a lot of change that needs to happen. If we don't see it in the 3 or 4 years we have them, we can look at or feel like a little bit of a failure. And my wife gave me a great advice years ago when I thought we had a kid that, man, I just wasn't getting through to it all. And she said, Matt, like, it's not your job to save them. Like, that's not your job. And I think you and I as believers, we know the only one that can save anyone. But sometimes as coaches, we act like that. Like, if we're so consistent, if we try to reach them so hard and make so much of a change, then we'll see it all now. And you know what? We might just be planting seeds that we don't get to see growth. But then at some point, 5 or 6 years later, we get the text, thank you for pouring into me. Thank you for what and that's where Ty Compton, coach at Pike University, said, those are the coaching paychecks that you wait for.
Yes, no, it's so funny you said that. You're spot on. Couldn't agree with you more. I got my first real paycheck. I called it a trophy. It's like, because I had a kid. He had moved to, I believe he moved to Lubbock. He moved out of town, and it wasn't nothing. He just moved. Family was moving, but he had sent me a text and just, hey, thanks, coach, for always being there for me. You're always there every time I needed you. I love you. Thank you for everything. Hope you guys go kill it this year. And for me, it was like, oh, I didn't know how it would hit me. I didn't expect it because that was my first one. But man, when I got that text, it was just, it fired me up like, all right, you're doing it right.
Yeah.
You're doing it right. And that was last year, when I was an assistant. So it just really fired me up. Like, that's what it's about. Like, you're spot on. Those are the real wins. Those are the real paychecks. That's really what you do it for.
What's been some of the big differences for you moving over from that assistant chair to head coaching chair?
I think last year, we kind of, there was it was in the air that, hey, I'm going to be the coach next year. And then our head coach, well-respected head coach, was transitioning out. There was some gray areas. If there were certain situations, parents would reach out directly to the head coach, which is no problem. I played my role. I stepped back. That wasn't my place. Because he did an incredible job, but in some instances, it would have been nice to kind of have the autonomy to handle a situation, but it just wasn't time. Like, you got to wait your time. You got to be loyal. You got to do things the right way and trust that they'll work out. And so I had a little bit of that last year, but I think with the players it's one voice. I think that's really huge, and not just my voice necessarily, but in terms of what who's in control. Not and I don't like the word control, but like
Direction.
which direction do I go? And this is the direction that you go. So that's nice having it. That's a big difference from being in the main chair than being in, taking the back seat. So that's something I've been enjoying, and it's and I think the kids like it too, because it was kind of that, like I said, and it was a stigma that was kind of over it, and it wasn't the previous coach before or anybody's. It was just kind of that transitional phase where things kind of naturally happen that way. And now it kind of passed, and now we're kind of moving towards that direction, or we're in that direction now.
Hey, I got one more question for you, and then we'll do a speed round and I'll get you out of here. And
Oh,
this
you're
is
good.
one that doesn't come up a lot is what rule change would you want and why? So I'm curious to see what you think there.
Okay, mine's really simple. I think in terms of just growth for not just our game, but for our kids and setting them up for what's next, I would definitely, we don't have it in New Mexico. I'm not sure if they have it in Texas, but we don't have a shot clock. I think a shot clock would be huge
Yes.
for our kids and just the development, at least at the varsity level. I understand if it's not junior varsity, junior high, whatever the case is, but it changes the game. It challenges you to think faster. It's a lot of challenges that it comes with, but there's a lot of growth that comes with it, and it's a higher demand and a higher level of thinking whenever it comes to the game with implementing a shot clock. There's nothing worse, and we've probably all been guilty of holding that ball for a minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I get it. You're trying to win. That's your strategy. But at the end of the day, I think a shot clock would be great, not just for, New Mexico, but I think high school across the country, just for the growth of our players, because that's what they're going to be doing no matter your junior college, NAIA, Division III, whatever. That a shot clock is coming. And then furthermore, you're going to be doing it if you make it to the pros.
And the world is doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, when I was in Iceland, those younger teams on boys and girls side were all playing with a 24-second shot clock,
Yes.
all the way down. Like so that's, and it's hard to not see, or ignore the numbers. Like the NBA, that the number of foreign players that are coming in and being drafted is growing more and more. And I do think a part of that is just how skilled they're becoming, and especially in the realm of decision making, because they're forced to at young ages to play faster and make quicker decisions. Coaches are there's less joysticking there because of the lack of time. Hey, we're
Mm-hmm.
in Texas, we don't have one. A coach can run a play, pull it back out, run a play, pull it back out, or like you said, in the second quarter, their best player sitting there about to check in. I'm just going to hold this thing for 4 minutes or more. And
Yeah.
but that's not happening at other places.
No, it's not. So I mean, I think that would be huge. I mean, I think it just automatically improves the IQ and just just the evolution of the game in general, being able to have a shot clock. So, but
I'm completely on board. There's a huge percentage of high school coaches in Texas that are on board, and we actually had there's three big classifications. There's UIL, which is public. There's TAPS, which is private, and there's SPC, kind of this other league. But they've had a shot clock for 2 years now in Texas, and it's worked out fine. They figured it out. There's a couple of glitches, and we actually get to play in a tournament at one of those schools. And I mean, over the course of 4 games, first of all, there's not as many shot clock violations as people think. Like
yes.
not everybody plays where we don't shoot in 35 seconds. And there's very few like mistakes, where they had to
Yes.
stop the game and reset. Like that doesn't happen that often. And then the other option or other worry is, okay, finances. How do we do that? Man, I don't know about you, but if you look at some of these schools in Texas,
100%.
they're not hurting for
Yes.
for money to make it happen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I agree completely with you, because there's something, whether it's some lights they put up or a new basketball rims or whatever. It could be anything. There's always some money somewhere to grab to put it there. It's just
Yep.
comes down to the choice. Do we want to spend it on that or do we not?
Have a business, like have a local business sponsor it, where right on top of the shot clock is their
Yeah,
their
100%.
logo.
Done.
Shot clock brought to you by Chick-fil-A. I don't know. Like, I think
Oh,
we could make it
100%.
happen.
Um,
But I'm on board. Well, hey, coach, the speed round. These are quick
okay.
questions. First thing that pops in your head, just blurt it out. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, Rocky Road ice cream.
Greatest shooter of all time?
Steph Curry.
Nice. Favorite superhero?
Iron Man.
Really? I like that. All right. Top 3 dinner guests that you would choose to have dinner with all time, like any time period.
Bill Russell.
Mm.
Uh, let's say Michael Jordan, of course. Let's go ahead and throw my guy Kobe in there too. They're all basketball players,
Nice.
of course. But
Yeah.
hey, no regrets.
That
We'll
would be
start
an
there.
awesome dinner, though, right there. Best basketball movie of all time.
Best basketball movie of all time. Oh, good question. Oh, got a lot of them. Used to like The Sixth Man. I liked Hoosiers a lot. Best documentary. There's a lot of documentaries. I just watched one of them. Movie. Hmm. I like Glory Road. I actually like that
Yeah.
story. That was, and then
One.
I'm really close to. We're close to El Paso, and just knowing Don Haskins, we got to go play. And when I was in college, when Coach Knight was coaching, I don't think he was coaching, but they got to reunite, and it was pretty cool to see. So just knowing kind of how the game evolved from that story right there at UTEP was pretty incredible. So Glory Road's
Great.
probably up there for me.
All right. Favorite holiday.
Favorite holiday, Christmas.
You're up 3 on defense with 5 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
Up by 3 seconds, foul or no foul. Wait, up by three.
Up 3, 5 seconds or less. Do you foul or no foul? So do you put them on the line so they just shoot 2 free throws, or do you trust your defense and you let them shoot the 3 and maybe you go into overtime?
Yeah, good question. Depends on the personnel, but more times than not, I trust our defense.
Yep.
But depends on the situation. I think in their personnel, they sub in 3-4 shooters. No, we're not letting them just shoot the ball.
Yeah. I heard one coach say, and this made a lot of sense, like the worst thing that happens if you let it play out is you go to overtime and
Mhm.
maybe you lose there. But if you do foul, there's a chance they hit the first free throw and then they miss, tip it out and hit a 3, you could lose.
Mhm.
So if there's a chance to lose in one scenario, why would you take that? But then, man, coach, I'll tell you, if I haven't done like a chart on it, but I think the majority of people would foul. But then when that coach said that, I was like, man, that makes sense too. So I think
Yeah.
it's right. I think a little bit of gray, a little bit of gray.
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, you can definitely foul because you can target who you foul. That's why I say the personnel. If you
Yeah.
get it in, you're up 3, 5 seconds. As soon as this person touches it, don't let this person get it. No matter what, we're gonna take the risk with this guy that shoots 65% or whatever that is, and you do that. That's what I would do. But like you said, just kind of blindly out there, hey, let it play out, and just trusting the defense because I'm big on defense. So we should already have a game plan in place to, hey, not have an advance.
Another point there is especially if you trust your defense, you're big on defense. Why would you ask them to do something late in the game that the rest of the game you don't want them to do?
Mhm.
Like it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like we tell our guys all fouls are errors. Like all fouls, your first foul is an error, your second foul, because only people get normally mad about 4 and 5, but they don't care about 1, 2, and 3. All of them
Yeah.
are errors. But then you're
Yeah.
asking them to do that later on. I don't know. Just some
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah. A lot of things go into that. A lot of things go into that for sure.
Yeah. Uh, Especially from what Coach Knight used to do with you giving books. What book would you give to someone?
Um, I gave my daughter Larry Bird Drive. I gave one of my players actually Larry Bird Drive. Gave my daughter Laws of Leadership by Maxwell, John Maxwell. I give them out. I pass them out now.
Nice.
What else I got? Ooh, there's a couple of other ones. Pat Riley was more of a coaching book. The Michael Jordan book I handed out as well. So there's a lot of different books. Most of them are basketball related, but are business related. I'm really big into just the 10x rule, the like what is it? The law, I was trying to think of the book's name. The habits. It was I forget the name of it.
Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits. That's one book I really loved a lot as well. There's just so much out there. I could go on and on, but those books are pretty impactful for sure. And then even Can't Hurt Me, with David Goggins, like just kind of that perspective and that mentality of, obviously you're gonna have some language in that one, but
Yeah.
I mean just his story in general and his approach, it's like, all right, I gotta get through this. So there's that resiliency he had. So there's a lot of great choices out there for sure.
It's good. 2 more. Your favorite place to travel?
Ooh, gosh, that's a good question. I'd have to pick one because I did the math on it. Like we got to go to 26 different countries, and then when I was in Europe, just traveling everywhere when you're playing like Euro Cup, you're doing whatever, playing all those different leagues. Favorite country? I'd probably have to say Italy. The food, the scenery, I just really liked it out there, you know. So it was Italy probably my favorite place that I traveled to.
Nice. Last one in basketball. Who's the GOAT?
Who's the GOAT? Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, no question about it. So, well, there's a lot of great players, but just no doubt, I grew up on them.
Me too.
Story, I grew up on LeBron. I mean, obviously, witnessed everything LeBron has done, Kobe's done, but just there's a great value in like what comes before you. And Jordan, he's just one of those guys. Like he could play at any era. You know,
Yeah.
he really could. And you always hear those arguments with players that played in the 80s or they played in the 70s, and they get crushed in today's league. Well, today's league wouldn't exist if you never had that. And I think that's a real thing that people overlook. That it's overlooked way too much. Like they're just discredited, and they got to put down the generations before us to uplift the generation now. It's not necessary. You just got to have that appreciation for, hey man, things develop. It's just like having your iPhone. Like, man, the iPhone 15 is way better than the iPhone 3. Duh, it should be, because there was things that kind of had to happen for it to get there, So that's just kind of how I view it. But hey, teach his own. Teach his own.
Coach, this was awesome, man. Like, first of all, so much fun getting to connect with you again and kind of in this way, because even as players, it's not like we talked a bunch to each other, but just always had a lot of respect for you. Didn't even really know a lot about your story. And then also fun to get to learn about you as a head coach. Thank you for sharing some of the stuff with Coach Knight, because that's just some priceless memories right there. But man, really appreciate your time.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Again, man, that's big respect, former Big 12 opponent, man. It's just incredible, man. I love what you're doing. I think it's incredible. And I'm just happy to be a part of it. So anytime, you need some more stories, Coach Knight stories, whatever, I got you.
Let's go.
We could do this thing again sometime. But man, seriously, thanks for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.